If you've been keeping up with us lately, then you've seen this photo up on our Facebook page and other pages that we have as well. That's a photo of Richard Fordham of a band called This Thing. Now, This Thing has ranged from great multiple members to just himself on his own. And there's something about an artist with a point of view that makes me always want to talk to them. So we're happy to have Richard with us here today on SBS Live this week. It's interesting to me that being an individual sometimes can get you kind of outcast, or kind of, you know, if you represent your style, if you choose to go your own way, that somehow that's always pushed people to the outside rather than had, you know, connected all of those people that are interested in this sort of thing, of which there are many. There's tons of artists you can point to that are doing completely unique things that you know, have an immense following. People like the Flaming Lips, or you could go as far as to say something like even Bjork. That's a certain defined sound, and people gravitate towards it or they don't. Richard would be the first to tell you himself that you may or may not like his music, but he's not concerned with that, and I totally applaud him for that. He's here to put the music out there for you, and whether or not you accept it, that's up to you. And either way, he's okay with that, and he should be, because at the end of the day, it's music, and it's inside all of us, and he's here to play some of it for us today on SBS Live this week. So we're going to get into talks about individuality, we're going to get into talks about creativity, we're going to get into talks about, oh man, we're going to talk about the industry for an independent artist and what it takes, and what has happened to this thing over the years. There's been people, there's been him, there's been instruments, there's been guitar, there's been, what's going on with this thing? I mean, you saw the photo, right? Everybody has their favorite guitar, and they should. Everybody should have their favorite instrument or something. I mean, don't even have a favorite. Just go out and get them all. Play them all. Do something. Make some music. And that's what Richard is all about. So we truly applaud him here at SBS, and we appreciate his time. So let's see what he has to say on this week's episode of SBS Live. On SBS Live this week, we've got This Thing here with us today to explain basically what this thing is all about, what he's up to, and what's coming up in the future here. So, Richard, I'd like to thank you for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
Not a problem. So, explain to people that have never seen you or heard you before, what is this thing about?
Well, it's mainly a musical project, although other elements like dance, film, visuals, and a bit of acting have been incorporated over time.
Right.
But it's mainly, like I said, musical. At any given point, it's ranged between a 5 and 9 member band,
okay,
with auxiliary performers. At this point, it's largely a solo project. I'm in the process of recruiting a band.
Mm-hmm.
But the music draws from influences like Syd Barrett and very early Pink Floyd, psychedelic era Beatles, Frank Zappa,
right,
and then jazz artists like Sun Ra.
Right, okay. Now, Tell me about, you spent a lot of the early days up in Nelson.
Yeah, that's where the project actually started.
Right.
I started it in Nelson and worked mainly with people who had gone to the Selkirk College music program.
Okay.
That was just a circumstance of, that just resulted because we all knew each other, and I needed people that could read music to be able to play the stuff, so
sure,
that was just a guaranteed fit there.
Tell me about the scene up there, though, because the interior's kind of always had its own pulse, I found, or at least from my trips up there. It's always kind of had, it's a very tight-knit community. Did you find that there was a lot of support for what you were doing up there, or?
I would say yes, in theory.
Right.
In the sense that people are very supportive of musicians in general up there. A brick wall I hit, though, early on was recognizing pretty early on that the style of music I play wasn't really going to catch on in this town.
Okay. Yeah, fair enough, because, and that, to me, makes sense. In my experience with the interior is that they are kind of stuck in that hard rock kind of genre, or at least that's what my experience has been. So I can understand that maybe you would have the struggle with that.
Yeah, it was kind of it was a funny thing. It's split off. There's the people that like the old school hard rock.
Yeah.
And then there's the whole folk contingent.
Sure, yeah.
And then there's the country and western people, and then there's the people who like, all the new dance stuff that plays in the trendier club.
Yeah.
And, so yeah, we didn't fit into any of those. And also the fact that most of our songs are very singularly undanceable.
Right.
But
you're okay with that?
I'm okay with that.
That's not something you're going for, right?
Yeah, it was designed to be that way.
Yeah.
But, for people that just wanted to go to a bar and hear dance music, we aren't the kind of band you're going to see for that.
Right. And did you run into that whole, I know typically bars in the past have based whether or not they want to have a band back is almost typically based around the drink sales rather than it is the actual quality of the music. Did you face that kind of, if people are dancing per se, they tend to be drinking more.
Yeah.
Was that conflict for you? Did you find that happened a lot?
It never really happened to us much because we just didn't play in the bars much.
Right.
Not that we had anything against it.
Yeah.
But, just giving them a demo tape and they'd hear the music is very undanceable.
Right.
We just wouldn't get into the bars. And
sure, yeah.
Again, I hit a point of realizing the only way I'm going to have gigs in this town is if I just cause them to happen.
Right.
So I would just save up money, rent a hall, make posters.
Right.
And try to get people there.
So strategically, you're kind of thinking a little outside of the box in terms of where you could play rather than the traditional and somewhat boring kind of bar setting anyway.
Well, the bars are fun. It's just we weren't the right kind of band for them, and there's no point disappointing a whole room full of people, and then we're not going to have a good time, and some bar owner in a small town that's trying to make a living is going to have a crappy night.
Right, yeah.
So we just figured we'll go for the, kind of the niches where we could, or just build our following by starting our own scene.
And so you were saying halls were something that you would typically rent out for this kind of thing? Did you find another place to, where else would you typically find yourself playing?
Well, at the time in the 90s, there was a very unique venue that existed. Okay. There had been a student society back in the days when there was a university. The university had been closed in the mid-'80s, but because the student society owned their building and it was off campus, they kind of stayed in existence, and they had a pub, and they just sponsored a lot of events for many, many years until they went out of existence in 99 or 98.
Okay.
So this organization, the David Thompson Student Society, would host a lot of things, and I'd use that venue to have gigs and
showcase the music. Did you find that the move to Vancouver changed the music at all, or was that not really part of where you were located before necessarily? The music is still the same, you're just in a different location now, or how is it different?
Well, it's a little of both of those variables. What happened was in 1996, I sort of felt like I'd run the course of trying to run this 9-piece band, and sort of cocked myself up with a lot of debt.
Right.
And I just kind of pulled the plug on the project, settled up my stuff, and moved on to other stuff. And then when I moved to Vancouver in '98, I didn't really even touch my own project for a few years.
Right.
I just played as a bass player in a bunch of other bands around here.
Okay.
And then after a while, started getting back into it. And it's not so much that the music itself has changed, but I'm thinking in terms of just having a smaller band.
Right.
So I've had to adapt a lot of the songs for a smaller band, or I'm writing new songs with the view that a smaller band be playing them.
Okay. Okay. And around Vancouver, have you had many live shows around Vancouver in the last little while, or is this thing still largely on a break, or where are we at right now? What would you say?
I appear on a solo basis every so often.
Okay.
You know, occasionally playing with backing tracks, occasionally just guitar.
Yep.
But, you know, my own inclination is to think that it works better as a band. So I'm going to be gearing towards recruiting in the next while.
Okay. Now, at its maximum, how big did this thing get?
At its maximum, we'd have 9 people in the band.
Okay.
We might have a couple of people doing some spoken word stuff. And then I'd invent dances for some of the songs, like really simple things that I could teach people 5 minutes before the show.
Right, right.
And I just kind of pick people out of the crowd. So I might have, 8 or 10 people. So there could be like up to 20 or so people kind of involved at any given point.
So it was a pretty interactive show that you were putting out there, at least at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. And so, and obviously the minimum is yourself. At points it's just been you on your own as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, in 2007, and I'm sure you know where I'm going with this one. In 2007, you had an accident that's pretty severe for a guitar player.
Yeah, that was part of what caused me to have to take a break for things. I actually crushed part of my left index finger.
Okay, if you don't mind my asking.
How?
How? Yeah.
I don't know if you ever heard of what's called a stadium conversion.
No.
Well, if you have a place like Rogers Arena, and they're switching from hockey game to concert.
Oh, okay, yeah.
There's things they got to do. They got to take the glass out, put panels on the floor, on the ice and all that. So I was working a conversion after the Beyonce show in 2007.
Okay.
And we were putting a segment of the boards back in around the rink that we had taken out to allow floor access. And my finger just basically got jammed right in there, and it dropped and smashed everything except the tendons in my finger, so I had to have pins and everything put in, and 2 operations.
Now, did it come right off, or did it?
No, it didn't come right off.
It just got crushed severely.
It basically, everything except the tendons. It was just basically hang off by the tendons.
Right. Wow.
But, the doctor said it was very lucky that I broke only the stuff that's relatively easy to repair.
Right, yeah. Well, I guess of all the situations, that's the best one to be in, I suppose.
Yeah. No, it was.
But it looks like it healed well.
More or less.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I could probably confuse tourists with the fact that it points in odd directions.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, just go that way.
Yeah.
But you're also, you're a right-handed guitar player, so for you, that's the fret.
Yeah, right? So it's the fret hand, and
I could definitely see that. What's the road to recovery like for that? Like, how often are you able to practice at the beginning, and like how do you get back into it?
Well, when I started, or when I had the surgeries, I had to take just a bit of time off because the skin is too sensitive, but then eventually you want to build the calluses up, and the more you get the fingers moving, the more you'll get movement back. So I did, week or twice weekly visits to the St. Paul's Hospital Occupational Therapy Clinic, and they gave me exercises to do, and then just the more I practice guitar, the better it is. Like when I start playing, it'll be very, very slow and stiff, but then after a little while, my hand sort of has its flexibility
muscle
back.
memory, right? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
for sure. Okay, well, this one's for one of our people behind the scenes here, but she's interested in the Hello Kitty guitar.
Oh.
We can get a close-up of that, and we have, yeah, good. And we're just curious. What's the story behind the Hello Kitty guitar?
Well,
I haven't seen one of these before.
I think they're pretty common, actually.
Okay.
I don't know, I got it at Lon McQuaid many years ago.
Right.
I didn't realize it was a Hello Kitty, I just was looking for a one pickup Strat.
Oh, okay.
And I just, saw the neck and it was in a rack, and I said, well, I saw the pink, and I said, well, so what if it's pink?
Yeah.
And then I just picked it up and put it on, and then I kind of noticed the Hello Kitty thing, but I just said, so what?
So at the end of the day,
okay guitar.
This is just a guitar that feels right and happens to have a Hello Kitty face on it.
And it was in the sort of budget realm that I was, affording at the time or whatever.
Absolutely.
But I don't know how many were made, because it's some arrangement between Fender and the Hello Kitty company.
Yeah, that's right. No, I've pretty much seen Hello Kitty everything at this point, but I hadn't seen a guitar before. Now I have. I think my Hello Kitty universe is pretty much complete.
Apparently I have to be careful, though, because I have a niece with a 3-year-old daughter, and I'm a bit more if the 3-year-old daughter ever sees it.
You're going to lose that. Yeah, absolutely, you'll lose that. Now, in one of your emails to me, Richard, you mentioned that you had taken some time to focus on some other aspects of creativity during your time off, or perhaps even during the music. What? Go into that a bit. What did you mean by that?
Well, around the time that I had that injury with the finger, because I wasn't really sure at first, how much playing was going to be part of my future again.
Yeah.
I went into doing, some more songwriting and arranging and that, and just learning a bit more about that. And then I decided I'd always sort of had an interest in film.
Right.
And then an opportunity came up to go to a really good acting school for a year. So I did that. It's in Vancouver, called New Image College of Fine Arts.
Right.
And so that was, we did learn film and stage acting in there.
Soundtrack work as well, correct? Is that?
Yeah, well, part of the program is you have to do a final project, and so we had a final project where we did a sort of a police film, and I wrote some of the music for that too.
And how was that in comparison to what you've written in the past? Were you writing like little tiny fragments of songs for certain points of the movie, or were they?
Yeah, I know what you mean. I wasn't writing so much specific cues, but rather opening and closing theme, and then the incidental music was, he wanted about 3 or 4 minutes, but more of a repetitive theme. It was interesting because generally when I write a song, I'm just writing what I want to write, whereas this is more like someone's giving you parameters and saying, write me something like this.
Right.
So
yeah, for sure.
The director's parameters were, he wanted something that was very much like a particular theme in a Sergio Leone film called Once Upon a Time in the West.
Okay, yeah.
I don't know if you know that movie, but there's a character named Cheyenne, and he has a certain theme that comes on every time he enters on the screen.
Okay, yeah.
So he wanted something that was like that theme, but felt detective-y.
Right. Okay.
So I kind of took the same idea, it was just a very light, bouncy melody, and instead of putting guitars and ukuleles and banjos in the background to make it sound cowboyish, I just put, bassoons, vibraphones, bass clarinets, really dark, sort of murky sounding instruments, to make it sound more like sort of early 60s kind of detective music.
Yeah. And now when you got the set of instructions from this director, was that could you hear that in your head right away? Was that okay, I know where I'm going to take this, and I know where I'm going to go with this, because you've been doing this for a while now. So I would imagine that if somebody's kind of giving you an idea of theirs, that at least you probably have an idea of how you can come about it.
Yeah, to some degree I can do that. I've had to work in situations where someone just describing it, and then I have to try and figure out how to do that musically. So I was able to hear what kind of melody, but then I had to sit down and work out the choices of what instruments to use and
Right.
what chords to put behind the melody and stuff.
Something that you think you'd do again?
Not just yet. I'd like to do it again. My main challenge is I'm not technologically set up right now to be able to guarantee fast turnaround on a project.
Right.
I had to do a lot of file transfers and borrow equipment and stuff, so it kind of took a little longer than it would have had you just hired a film composer guy that does it all the time and can give you your CD in 2 days.
Yeah, I understand that. Yeah, for sure. Tell me about, in terms of what, because you've listed some pretty interesting influences in your music in terms of people like Sid Barrett and whatnot. They've lived some pretty interesting lives. Tell me about maybe something about your own life that you bring into your music. What's maybe a value that you have that's represented in what you do?
Okay, I understand your question. It's the how to answer part I don't know.
Fair enough. That is an honest answer.
I don't know, because a lot of my music isn't very autobiographical. And, you know, sometimes I'm writing more about things I've noticed, either in terms of people I know or just larger events.
Right.
I'd say probably it does, like, I think any music reflects the character of the person that writes it.
Sure.
And, you know, I think there is some degree to which my music does kind of sound like the kind of person I am.
Right.
In the sense that it's fairly ordered, but there's a lot of extra noise going on.
Okay. And how do you mean extra noise? Like, are we talking like extraneous instruments, or are we talking like...
Could be extraneous instruments, odd harmonies that seem to come out of nowhere, or bits of music that come out of nowhere.
Okay.
And have sort of an almost chaotic thing to them, but
Right.
there is a reason for them being there.
Certainly, yeah.
And if only because I've had a lot of friends who, in some ways, like some of my friends think of me as a really rigidly ordered person,
Okay.
and others tend to think of me as completely anarchical, and
Right.
I think it's more of a two.
Okay, so you're finding the balance in between the two.
I
is what
guess.
you're saying, yeah. Okay.
And I think my music kind of sounds like that because it can switch rather rapidly, but you know, there's a reason for the switch.
Right, yeah. Well, and at the end of the day, I mean, most people, at least that I know of, are making music that they like to listen to themselves. So I would assume that kind of thing is something that appeals to you. You like those different elements coming in and out of your songs. These different noise elements, as you're saying.
Yeah.
You know, and I know for myself, I love that kind of stuff. You know, whenever something gets a little bit different or weird, I use a song all the time as an example from a band called Mogwai. They're an instrumental. They're classified as space rock. But they have a beautiful song called Golden Porsche, which is just an instrumental guitar track. And they've got the loudest and most horrific sound spike in the middle of this beautiful melody. I'm dying to ever get an interview with the guys just to ask them that one question that, you know, one day, what the heck is going on with that one spot? But I know it's on purpose, because there are people out there that they do like to hear things just a little bit differently than other people do. And, you know, in terms of something like that, that was probably the perfect moment in that song for them. Whereas for another person, they might listen to it and they might have no idea why it's there. What do you think that, like, for a person to listen to the music of this thing the first time, what do you see their perception as? How are they hearing it?
It's hard to know because I've seen different reactions.
Okay.
You know, I've seen some people that almost have a look of horror on their face upon hearing it. And then I've seen sort of the opposite, almost like they were almost excited by it in a way.
Right.
And I mean, I just think it has so much to do with individual tastes that, I could never predict who's going to be a fan of our music. I'm quite often surprised at the people that were. But, I suppose if I were to go through their CD collection, I'd probably see things that were maybe similar to us.
Right.
Or have the same influence as us, whereas if I went to the people who, looked at us in abject horror,
Right.
I'd probably find their collection is full of folk.
Right.
Sure. It's like we're like the anti-folk to them.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. Something different for sure. On SBS Live this week, we've got this thing with a special performance.
This is called Coconut. It's a song about a musician who's playing in a milieu where he feels very out of his element. Skin-tight gowns rub the suits into a bother. It's a midnight search for the fattest wallet. It's an age-old game played here every Friday night. It always ends up in a fuck or a fight. Lost boys adrift in their family's second wagon with no center in their souls and all the toys they could handle, busting everything that gets in their way. Daddy buys the band-aids and they got to go again. I'm just playing for my pay and shaking with the hopes that I can stay away from monkeys who live la vida coca. I'm not pretty enough to sing a love samba. I assume you won't want to see me shaking my la bamba. She's all liquored up, shaking what she's got. It's what some girls do when they want to seem exotic. It's not enough to be a good cook anymore. She needs a PhD and the prowess of a porn star. Saying Spanish things and waxing so quixotic. That's what white guys do when they want to seem exotic. I never really got into the habit of the Latin. It's what jazz guys do when they want to get you dancing. I'm just playing for my pay and shaking with the hope that I can stay away from monkeys who live la vida coca. I'm not pretty enough to sing a love samba. I assume you won't want to see me shaking my la bamba. And to make it all worse, I don't even give a fuck about the lime and the coconut.
The people watching SBS Live this week, we just want to say thank you again. You stick with us through some unique acts, just like Richard from this thing, and just like anyone really that we're going to bring to you in the future. We like to bring you artists with a point of view. We like them to have something to say or something to prove, as you know. So it's always cool to see what the inner workings of a band really are, or a solo artist, or again, this thing has been both. So Richard, I want to thank you again for being here with us this week, on SBS Live, and really, you know, kind of demonstrating that it's okay to go your own way, to do your own thing, not have to worry about what other people think about it, because that's what art is all about. It's inside you, and it's time to get it out of there. So I think, you know, in terms of that kind of stuff, again, Richard would say himself, love him or hate him, I think you got to respect him. And I think that at the end of the day, that's an artist with a point of view. It's different from everybody else, and I always appreciate talking to somebody like that. So, Richard, again, thank you from all of us here at Sleeping Bag Studios. We appreciate your time, and we look forward to seeing you again on Sunday. You know, again, right? You know it's taped, but whatever. I miss my beard. Anyway, let's go back to it. So what else have we got? Thrice contest still continues to roll on. We appreciate everybody that's registered for that. Continue to register through sleepingbagstudios.ca and win yourself or your band some free studio time. It looks like things are going well. We're happy with it so far. It seems like people are downloading now from the website, which is good. The songs are posted. If you haven't got them yet, go and get them there. Again, sleepingbagstudios.ca. They're right there on the main page. I want to say an extra thanks to Sweden once again for tuning in last week, and hopefully they're back again with us this week and seeing what we do with another artist and another unique point of view. So we appreciate anybody coming back from there, and anywhere else from around the world. We also appreciate having you. We've recently been contacted by all kinds of artists, and we appreciate that our reach is now somehow far beyond our own studio walls. So you'll see on our main page and other pages that we have people like Philip Foxley, a blues guitar player from the UK, and a complete gentleman, complete stand-up character, a really good guy. And honestly, the music is awesome. I hadn't listened to the blues or blues rock for some time, so it was nice to dig back into that genre. And again, when the people behind the music mean so much, or they have that want to communicate or really send that message, they're hungry, they have something to say, they have something to prove, something like that. Just like that. Philip Foxley is one of those people that has that. So I really appreciate him giving us his time. You know, and again, there's other artists that the list goes on forever. Better Than Grey will be here with us via video chat sooner rather than later. We're happy to have those guys come up. We're also happy to have Perception, the author, will be here with us via video chat. And we're hoping, and we know that it's coming soon, because you've seen the post, you've seen the picture. You need another picture? Okay, one more. Look at this. Okay, not only is the picture awesome and exciting, but you can see from underneath there in that little bit of text, yeah, it's like a novel. The reason why is because this band is really fantastic vision, and they have a really unique perception of the world and the art that they create in it. So I'm excited to have those guys as well. That is Singed. They will be here with us via video chat as well very soon on SBS Live this week. But before all that, before any of this stuff happens, you know we're back again on Sunday with Richard Fordham of This Thing on SBS Live this week, and we will see you then.